Husband got fired for paranoia, threatened to choke me on a drive, and now I'm wondering if I need an escape. My 30F spouse, 35 male, has been experiencing behavior that has only become increasingly concerning. In the past 2 months now, he has been talking about things that he claims are happening but he's never mentioned before. As some background info, when his behavior first started getting concerning, I managed to convince him to go to the hospital to get checked out for his mental health. He wasn't even seen by a doctor and he was told he just needs to take a certain medicine to help him sleep. The issue is he also smokes weed, so this medicine does not mix well with that. He won't quit smoking. We also have 2 very young kids. Back to the weird recent behavior, he claims he had an old email with an inheritance that got hacked and he needs access to it. I tried helping him get on it but he hasn't used it in literally the 12 years we've been together. I only knew of its existence previously when I helped him switch his Facebook login and that was an email attached. Another example is that he believes everyone is talking about him to me and everyone else. I mean literally everyone else. He thinks there's some sort big thing planned to hurt him or do something horrible to him soon and that we're all on it. On a few other separate occasions he's asked about a show that we're on and asked how much money I'm being paid to keep a secret. He also thinks I'm having secret phone calls and that I've apparently left the room to accept these calls, which then results in me coming back crying about something I've apparently discussed on the phone. Whenever I try to explain to him that none of this is happening, he fights back saying that I'm just lying to him and to tell him the truth. That I need to tell him the truth or something bad is going to happen. It's gotten so bad, he ended up getting fired from his job because he was barely showing up. He kept going to the cop station to make a report instead of going to work. After he got fired there was some sort of tense situation where they ended up calling a wellness check for him, because they were afraid he's going to come back and hurt someone. The cops showed up while I was also home and he said he wouldn't hurt someone, he only acts in defense. In the recent weeks, he's gone from screaming at me demanding answers to just not talking to me at all. At this point I'd rather he just not interact with me. The reason I'm writing this is because of what happened today. It was a nice day out and I asked if he would come with me for a walk with our kids, to which he agreed to. He barely spoke a word to me or the kids on this walk, and when we came across a playground, I asked if we should take the kids there for a few minutes of play. He then got upset at me for suggesting it and said I always control everything and I'm the queen of the decisions. I didn't even tell him we were doing that, I just asked. When I mentioned this he just said do whatever you want, like always, so I figured why not. So I played with the kids at the playground and he did his own thing. Someone left a couple various balls there and he was throwing them around. He then picked up the football and threw it in my direction. It flew past me a couple feet from me. I asked why he did that and he said why are you upset? It didn't hit you, to which I responded well what if it did? He then said if I wanted it to hit you in the head I would have thrown it that way. Then he started on a rant about how he's going through the same thing with everyone lying to him. After which he sat down in the corner of the park and was doing literally nothing. I was getting upset, so I packed up the kids and started walking to leave the park. I said to him we're going home and started walking away. Apparently he tried to yell out to us but ended up taking a different way home than we did. He told me this when he met me on the street when we were almost home, saying that next time I want to be an idiot and walk away maybe stop and listen for him calling out. I didn't hear him but honestly he could have easily caught up to us. I was getting more and more upset and said I wanted to go for a drive to get coffee and he said fine. I said I wanted to take the kids and he asked why. Then I said fine, you stay home with them and he said no they can go with you and started putting them in the car. I got in the car, and he got in the passenger seat, to which I asked him if he's coming with. He said yes and a drive. I told him I didn't want him coming with because he's being mean and he said he could be a lot meaner. As I started driving away he kept going off on the usual BS he's been talking about lately and I told him I don't want to hear it. He started screaming at me to keep driving and shut the fuck up. I stopped the car and told him to get out and he made a motion like he was going to punch me but punched his hand in front of my face. At this point I started crying and yelling at him to get out and he yelled back no just drive. I then said I should just drive him to the police station for that and he said he would choke me unconscious before we even got there. I was crying even more at this point and said I don't want to be with him anymore and I want him out. He said no. He continued to be a D for the rest of the car ride, where I pleaded with him to not treat me this way, especially in front of our children. It's not fair to them, or to me. He said to not bring them into this. I said how couldn't I, they are literally in the car. Anyway after I drove us home, he asked how long I've been waiting to break up with him and who I'm replacing him with. I told him I haven't been and there's no one else, which of course he doesn't believe. When he got inside he even taunted me saying I should take you to the cop station in a girly voice. He's outside smoking and I'm inside with the kids writing this. Of course I'm shook up currently but I don't know what to do. We only have the one vehicle which is in both our names. The place we rent is actually my mom's so we don't have a lease but we both have our addresses attached to this place on our licenses. He wasn't always like this, literally only the past couple months his behavior has been this bad. I miss the person he used to be, I miss that he would spend time with me, with the kids, but he spends all his time by himself now. I don't know if he's going through some sort of manic episode or what's triggering this change in behavior but I really don't know what to do. Is there something differently I can do to help him? Every time he talks to me about whatever situation he doesn't accept any answer I say and also won't accept if I say nothing. Update 1. I left the house the night I made the post, but went back home the following day. I wanted to be able to collect some sort of evidence I could use, because my spouse has been really good at downplaying his symptoms to any authority figure. I want to mention that I had been present at most doctor and hospital visits prior, so I know what they did recommend for him. I felt at the time that they did not give him enough help for the crisis he was obviously going through. Anyway, continuing on, the couple days after the Sunday post, he did not really engage in much conversation with me or our children. Every time he entered the room, I set my phone to record. I did not get anything until Thursday, when he finally started talking to me again. He was questioning who I had been talking to about him and who has been trying to sabotage his life. Obviously I denied everything, because there is no one talking to me about him, aside from this Reddit post, which he didn't know about. This started to anger him, which included him yelling at me and saying if anyone is talking to me about him, to bring him to the house so he can take care of them himself. I tried to not to engage anymore. This made him more upset, as he was continuing to demand answers from me. He would then say, "Oh, I want to hit you or don't make me slap you," when I was either not answering or just saying I didn't know what he was talking about. I got this on recording. After he ended up walking away and leaving the room, I took the kids to bed, locked us in our room and tried to sleep. The following morning, he insisted on driving me to work. I told him I wanted the car, to which he disagreed with me and said he needed it. After dropping out kids off, he started going off on me about how I am stupidity, dumb, a bitch, etc. for keeping his inheritance, again something he is clearly having delusions about, from him. I tried to disengage completely, keeping myself to far side of the passenger seat, which caused him to grab me by the back of my neck and pull me closer to him, where he told me to listen to him. I obviously reacted to this and was super upset, telling him to please focus on driving and not touch me again. After he drove me to work, the last thing I said to him as he was still going off on me with the car window open, was, "You desperately need help." Once I got in, I called my boss and let her know what happened. She came in, cancelled her appointments for the day, and took me to the police station. We made a report, although the sergeant we initially spoke to seemed to be against us making a report. He kept saying he will be homeless if I report him, like he's the victim in this scenario. I told him my safety and the kids' safety should be more important, and he brought in a different officer to make the statement with me. Once I completed that statement, they let me know to stay away from the house as they were going to arrest him, and will call once he's out of the house. About 5 hours later, he was arrested. Apparently he was very compliant, and with all the information I provided, they actually took him to the hospital, and he is currently on a 30-day psychiatric hold. He will be going to court at some point for uttering threats and assault, but seeing how he doesn't have a criminal record, I'm sure it will just end up being a slap on the wrist. So as of now, I am home, safe with the children, and we are getting our locks changed. I will also most likely get a protection order, but in an ideal world, he gets better and that's not necessary. I guess we will see in the future. Update 2. I still get messages asking how I am and to update again. I apologize in the delay, but I've been a bit deterred from making another post due to coming across a TikTok video of one of those AI voices reading my post over a Minecraft video. If one of those channels decides to post this one, please don't. But if you do anyway, blah 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 blah, we can't make our own unique content. Anyway, on to the actual update. My spouse is doing a lot better. He received the treatment he needed in the psych ward of the hospital, gets a shot every so often instead of taking pills, and only smokes cigarettes now. He's back to his normal self, engages in conversation with myself and our children like he did before this crazy shit happened, has a job, and honestly, is being a better partner overall. It took a lot of time for me to feel like I could trust him again, but we've taken a lot of time to work on things and get back to how we should be. I know a lot of people wanted me to leave and never look back. But you have to realize how he acted in my initial post was nothing like how he is as a person. Obviously he had some sort of weird psychosis happening, which could have been a result of a high intake of marijuana, plus a couple added stressors. I don't want to go into too many details because it will give away where we are, but basically something traumatic happened under 10 years ago that happened again a month before he started acting strange. It was one of those types of events that forces you out of your home for undetermined amount of time. Anyway, that's all the detail I want to go into that. Obviously he was affected by it more than I thought, because when this event happened, I was the one having a difficult time and he was my rock. But after we were able to go back home and have some normalcy, that's when things started changing for him. It started with him randomly needing to gain access into an old email, to thinking he was being recorded all the time like he was on the Truman Show or something, to thinking that everyone, including me, was out to get him. This is when the threats of violence started happening. I was obviously in disbelief because in the entire time we've been together, nothing like this has ever happened. I never once felt like I was unsafe. I never felt scared. Until the threats continued to come, and he started to escalate. After he made excellent progress in the hospital and I had many reassuring conversations with the psychiatrist, I allowed him to come home when he was discharged. It was so hard not having him around. I cried all the time. Our kids really missed their dad, and he really missed us. Update 3. Hello all, it's been almost a year since my last update. To keep things short, shit hit the fan this year. He didn't take the medications he was supposed to, reverted into another major psychosis episode which ended in him attempting to strangle me after I disputed his delusions. He was removed from the home and there's a protective order against him for myself and the kids. This happened earlier this year. My kids and I are safe, and haven't heard from him since. Don't be like me. Don't trust that someone will get better or attempt to work on their horrible mental health when they haven't proven to be reliable in other parts in their life. Don't try to fix someone who can't be fixed, or rather, just don't try to fix people. Update 4. I thought quiet would feel like a gift. I pictured weeks of boring, normal days, kids sticky with popsicles, laundry going in on time, my brain finally not scanning every sound like a radar. For a little while it was like that, actually. Then it wasn't. I filed for divorce and full custody. He was served at an address his sister gave the sheriff, then I guess he decided he was a lawyer now. A guy in an ill-fitting suit hand-delivered me a stack of papers that looked like they were photocopied, from a conspiracy subreddit. It was titled something like Affidavit of Truth and Ownership of Self and he'd signed it with his name in all caps, then in parentheses Flesh and Blood Man. I'm not making that up. There were fake liens and a paragraph about how courts are corporations and how I owe him damages for emotional theft. My lawyer told me to breathe and let the judge be the one to roll her eyes, which she did. He didn't show up to the first hearing because he doesn't consent to maritime law. The clerk actually wrote did not appear and underlined it twice. The order stayed in place, thick as ever. I changed my number and then changed it again because he kept trying to get around it through stupid little loopholes. One night a pizza showed up that I didn't order with "on me girl" scribbled in the online notes. I called to cancel it and the poor delivery kid went pale when I explained why. Another night, a drone hovered outside the kid's window like a nosy mosquito. I only noticed because I'd gotten so used to checking the baby monitor that I heard the buzzing over the white noise. The video shows a black dot at the corner of the window and my son going Firefly. I went sprinting outside in socks and there he was, in the next block, standing in a hoodie with a controller. He didn't run when the cops came. He was calm, even sweet, like he was about to ask me if we wanted lemonade. They arrested him on the spot for violating the order and the officers who used to treat me like I was inconveniencing their lunch actually apologized. He cried in the back of the cruiser. I sat on my front steps, shaking so hard my teeth clacked. Jail sobered him for about 5 days. His sister called me afterward, voice wrecked. He was telling their mother he had to collect the children before we all got pulled. I don't know what that means. I only know what it felt like to sit in the visitation center that the court approved while 2 women with clipboards explained that if he said the wrong kind of thing, the visit would end. I brought art supplies and granola bars and told the kids we were going to see Daddy in a playroom. He came in slow, underweight and clean-shaven, with that hospital look on him, the one that says someone else laid out your outfit and forced you to eat. He cried when our daughter ran to him and he held her like she was breakable. For 15 minutes I let myself forget every police report and let my stomach unclench. Then he started asking them if I make them practice what to say. He slid our son a folded paper with a new phone number written on it and circled the words "tell me if they're scaring you." The monitor put her hand between his and our son's, and he smiled at her like she'd spilled a drink on him. When she told him he couldn't pass notes he said, sweetly, "Okay, then I'll just say it." He looked at our 6-year-old and said, "If mommy tells you to hide when I come, you don't have to do that. You know I'm the one who keeps you safe, right?" He was calm, too calm, like he'd rehearsed this in a mirror until it sounded like a lullaby. The visit ended right then. He scratched his own forearm until it bled while security walked him out. Our daughter asked why Daddy didn't finish his picture. I said he had to go potty. The judge paused visits until he complied with treatment. He didn't. He filed more nonsense and then he disappeared for nearly 3 weeks. His family and the police did a welfare check at the place he'd been crashing and found nothing. I slept next to a baseball bat like I was in a bad movie and checked the front camera 100 times a night until the sun came up and an email came through. He'd been picked up behind a church after someone called because he was washing his clothes in the baptismal font. I laughed, then I cried, then I laughed again, because what else do you do when your life sounds like a fever dream? They took him in on a 72-hour hold that turned into longer, and this time there was a psychiatrist in the court hallway who didn't mince words. He used the phrase "lacks capacity." I heard it and thought about all the times I said he was just having a hard week. His mother petitioned for guardianship and got it. She wanted me to talk to him for closure, which is the funniest word I've ever heard in this context. I said no. She cried and told me she never raised him for this. I reminded her I never married him for this. We have the same grief in different jobs inside it. Mine's to keep 2 kids intact, hers is to sit next to a grown man and coax him to swallow a pill he spits into the windowsill when she turns her head. While all of this was happening, normal life pushed on like a parade that refuses to stop for a car crash. I finally bought my own car, a cracked windshield sedan that smells like someone once smoked a pack a day and then quit. I moved out of my mom's place into a small townhouse with a deadbolt you could anchor a ship to and a backyard slope the kids turn into a mudslide every time it rains. I took the kids to therapy where my daughter played with figurines and put the daddy one on a toy airplane and flew it into a bin labeled hospital, like she was cleaning her room. My son started sleeping through the night again and then asked me one morning if we could throw the drone a birthday party so it would stop being mad and go away. Somewhere in there I learned how to fix a leaky sink and how to set up a motion sensor and how to look at a judge and speak in a voice that didn't shake. I did run into him once. This was about a month ago, at the grocery store, of all the stupid places. I was in the cereal aisle trying to decode which box had the least sugar and he came around the corner pushing a cart with only a pack of paper plates in it. We made eye contact and time did that thing where it turns into thick honey. He looked clear-eyed. He said my name like a question. I ducked into the staff corridor and told a woman stocking bread, "I have a protective order against that man and I can't be here." She walked me through a door that said employees only and let me stand in a freezer for 5 minutes while I watched my breath bloom. The manager walked me to my car and I sat there, hands on the wheel, until I could feel my body in the seat again. Later, his sister texted me, "He says he saw you and didn't come close." As if I owe him a gold star for not breaking a law he's already broken. The divorce is moving. He won't answer basic disclosures but he has plenty of energy to write on yellow legal pads about how my legal name is a fiction. The judge threatened sanctions, then ordered a psych evaluation for custody which came back with words like paranoid projections and poor insight. It's so clinical it almost feels mean, if you forget the part where he choked me in front of our kids. There's a hearing next month about making the temporary orders permanent. My lawyer says it's not dramatic TV, it's just paperwork and then me talking about what a day looks like at our house without embellishment. I told her my house contains 1 stuffed bear, 2 scooters, and 3,000 toothbrushes because my son thinks they are battle swords, and a mountain of clean laundry I never have time to fold. She told me to wear something that makes me feel like I'm at church and remember to call the judge your honor even when I want to call him sir like I'm ordering at a diner. I found a shoebox when I was sorting the last of the old stuff. It had receipts from places that don't exist anymore, a bullet casing that I don't even want to think about, and a letter he wrote to himself at 22. It was one of those time capsule things you're supposed to open in 10 years. He never did. It said he hoped he'd be a good dad and that he'd still like fishing and that his temper would be shorter, not because anger is big but because peace is easier. It ended with "Please be kind to the girl who picks you." I sat on my kitchen floor and cried so hard my stomach cramped. I'm not going to send it to him. I'm keeping it, not because it's some talisman that will make him change, but because it reminds me that somewhere under the static there was a person I loved and that I'm allowed to mourn him without inviting him back into our life. I keep thinking in seasons. Last year was a winter that never ended, gray and wet and full of black ice you only notice when you're already on your back. This year isn't summer. It's that late spring when everything is either blooming or smelling like old rain, when you keep a sweater in your bag because the shade can trick you. The kids are taller. My daughter lost 2 bottom teeth and held them in her palm like pearls. My son spelled his name without me holding his hand and then wrote mom in a way that looked like a series of square waves. I've started running again. I'm slow and my playlists are embarrassing and I don't care. Sometimes I run past the police station and it doesn't make my stomach flip anymore. Every time I think the story has settled, something tilts it. I don't expect it to stop tilting. I have a folder in my kitchen labeled kid stuff, 1 labeled house stuff, and 1 thick as a dictionary labeled court stuff. I used to think the measure of getting through this would be a day where I didn't think about him at all. That day isn't here yet. The measure for now is that when I do think about him, I don't do it with my hand on my throat counting my heartbeat like a metronome. It's this: our front door is boring, our evenings are loud with normal sounds, and the man on the other side of the order is nowhere in our rooms. That's enough. For now, that's enough. Update 5. The day the judge said permanent, the courthouse smelled like lemon cleaner and something burned into the carpet a long time ago. I wore a dress that makes me feel like I'm about to eat a hard candy in a pew, which is exactly what my lawyer told me to aim for. He showed up after me, trailing a manila folder fat with printouts and red thumbprints, a tie knotted like he learned by watching a video on 2x speed. He didn't look wild. That's always the worst part, how ordinary he can look. It makes the floor tilt. The judge asked us all to state our names for the record and he gave 3. His birth name, a middle name he invented that sounded like a ship, and then a man, not a person, which she didn't write down. He tried to object to the jurisdiction on the grounds of admiralty. He actually said the word flag, and the judge closed her eyes like she was trying to pick a headache out of her temple with tweezers. "Sit down," she said. "You can object to reality on your own time." A man I've never met but feel like I've heard in my own dreams took the witness box and read from the psych evaluation. He said phrases like paranoid delusions and poor insight and history of non-compliance with treatment while my hands sweated through my program-appropriate dress. When they asked me to talk about a day at our house, I talked about the mundane because I've learned that's where safety lives. I said breakfast looks like oatmeal on the floor and half a banana in a backpack. I said we do spelling by writing and shaving cream because sensory is good for our son. I said I host a backyard Olympic event called Who Can Pick Up the Most Sticks in 2 minutes because my lawn guy quit and I am now the lawn guy. I made myself stop before I said we keep the kitchen scissors on top of the fridge because I still catch myself hiding things. He tried to cross-examine me. He asked me if I could point to the contract where I agreed to alienate the children. He asked me if I'd like to explain to the court why I forced him into a maritime status by using our social security numbers when we got married. He asked me if I'd been coached to cry. I didn't cry. The judge didn't let him ask about the drone. She did let him ask me if I'd kept the kids from calling him on his new number, and I said there's an order and I follow orders. He said, "Not when you make them up." She tapped her pen once and the deputy stood up just enough for his belt to jingle. It wasn't dramatic TV. No gavel slam. The judge read a string of words that clicked into a shape like scaffolding snapping into place: permanent protective order, sole legal and sole physical custody to me, visitation supervised at a facility only upon proof of ongoing treatment and compliance as directed by his medical team. She said, "Mr. Redacted, this isn't punishment. This is math. Risk is risk." He started to say something about his superior title to the children and she held up a hand like a stop sign and then looked at me and said, gently, "Ms. Redacted, get the kids to school. We're finished." I sat in my car and stared at my hands until they stopped looking like someone else's. Later I bought the kids ice cream and we ate it for dinner in the living room. It felt like a holiday nobody else celebrates. 3 days later CPS knocked on my door because someone had called in an anonymous report that I leave the kids home alone and host drug parties. The social worker looked exactly like the social worker in my head: cardigan, tote bag, a pen with a fun topper to hand to nervous kids. She sat on my rug while my son showed her his tooth collection and my daughter explained that the drone is mean but not actually a bee. We walked through the house. She opened the fridge and nodded at the mountain of yogurt tubes. She checked the backyard gate and the window locks and the cabinet with the cleaning supplies. She wrote some things down and then she asked if there was anyone who might be trying to cause problems. I told her I didn't believe in anonymous, not really, and she smiled at me like we were both choosing kindness anyway. It closed as quickly as it opened. I still took the trash out that night like there were eyes in the hedges. I thought that would be the jolt for this chapter. I was wrong. The real jolt was a text from the school district that said, "We are in a shelter in place. All students are safe. Please do not come to the campus. We will update you as soon as possible." I was in the self-checkout lane with a loaf of bread and a backpack buckle my daughter had broken on purpose so she could use the strap as a tail. I didn't even pay. I left the bread on the scale and ran. By the time I got to the school there were 2 police cars parked in the bus loop and the principal's face had moved to a new level of calm. She met me at the door and touched my elbow in a way that made me feel like a person and not a fire. "They're okay," she said. He came to the office and tried to check them out with paperwork he printed from the internet. He told Mrs. Klein he had reclaimed his parental rights in a private capacity and that he was seizing his property without prejudice. She said all of this like she'd had a rehearsal, and in a way, we had. I had given them the order. I had given them his photo. I had given them a password that he didn't know. He was sitting very calmly in an office chair when I walked past to the counselor's room. He had a reflective vest on, like he was trying to camouflage himself as safety. He saw me and started to stand up and 3 hands pressed him back down. "I'm not here to cause trouble," he said to the ceiling panels. "I'm just here to correct the record." I picked up my kids, who each had a sticker that said Brave Tiger on it, and carried them out through the back door to the playground where we waited until they took him away. The swing seat was hot from the sun. My daughter squeaked every time it touched her legs. I answered their questions with the least amount of words I could. We went home and I let them watch a show where the biggest problem is a cartoon dog losing his bone. He violated the order. He was charged again. His mother's voice on the phone that night was the sound of someone rubbing their thumb over a cracked plate hoping it will smooth out. "I didn't know," she said, and I reminded both of us that he is very good at moving when people blink. She said she found 4 coffee filters packed into the hole behind his dresser where he'd been spitting his meds. She said the outpatient program put him on a wait list for a bed in a locked facility, and that wait list is a word that sounds polite but feels like standing on one foot on a bus that keeps stopping. She asked me if she could bring him photos of the kids, and I said maybe next season. I meant never, but it came out kinder. A smaller thing that felt stupidly big, I picked up the final divorce decree from the clerk's window like I was getting a prescription for someone else. There's a line in it that says marital status terminated and then a date. That's it. 9 years with a start and an end like library hours. I sat in the parking garage and read it twice and then put it in the thick folder labeled court stuff and then put the whole folder in the trunk because I wanted to drive home without it breathing in the passenger seat. On the way home my phone lit up with a call from a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail and when I listened, it was a recorded robot telling me there had been a lien placed on my car by the Republic of myself for emotional damages in the amount of $75,000. I laughed in a way that made a sound I didn't recognize. The DMV clerk who finally untangled it wore a pin shaped like a cat and looked me in the eye like a teammate. "We see these," she said, stamping something with unnecessary enthusiasm like she was squashing a bug. "We have a rhythm now. It's weird to call it that when it includes memorizing which courthouse bathroom doesn't have a broken lock and teaching your kids to call 911 if mommy falls asleep with her eyes open, but it's a rhythm." I take them to therapy on Thursdays after school and we make it special by stopping at the gas station that has the freezer full of weird popsicles. The kids made cards for Father's Day at school and my daughter made 2. One said I love my uncle because he's been at our house more, fixing the gutter like a favorite sitcom neighbor, and the other was just a solid blue heart. She asked me if she could give it to Daddy. I said we could give it to Nana to save for later, and I caught Nana's eye across the parking lot and we both nodded like traffic cops. It hurts and works at the same time. He had one stretch, a good week, where his mother said he was going to groups and eating and not referring to judges as ship's captains. Then someone at the facility called because he had run. He showed up at the little church by our old apartment and asked the pastor if he could sleep in the baptismal because he needed to be new again. The pastor wrapped him in a scratchy blanket and called his mother, and I thought again about that letter I found, about the 22-year-old version of him who wanted to be kind and like fishing. Every time I get tilted, I open it and then close it again. It's my museum piece. It helps me mourn without making me reckless. The kids are making their own small museums out of things I wouldn't think to save. A straw wrapper that Daddy folded into a chain, a ticket stub from a carousel I took them on when I was trying to prove we still have magic. My son asked me if the police get tired of telling Daddy the rules. I said yes, probably. He said, "Do you?" I told him I get tired, but I don't get tired of keeping them safe. He nodded in that solemn 5-year-old way, then asked if we could build a fort out of all the couch cushions in the world. We did that and fell asleep in there watching a man on TV make bread like it was an Olympic sport. A stranger thing, a certified letter came addressed to him at my new place. I signed for it because the mailman said my name and I wasn't quick enough to remember my new habit of no. It was from a bank downtown about a safe deposit box he'd failed to pay for. I gave it to my lawyer, who called the bank, and the bank said it contained a broken wristwatch and a grocery list and a dry flower pressed into a napkin. I let the bank drill it. I didn't need more haunted objects. If you're looking for neat arcs, there aren't any. There's a court date next month because the DA rolled some of the violations together to see if they can force a longer treatment stint. There's a meeting at the school about safety plans that we all now call an end-of-year review because we prefer euphemisms to flinching. There's a new deadbolt on the back door that snaps shut with a sound that makes me want to high-five it. There's my neighborhood group chat arguing about raccoons like that's the biggest menace we share. There's me, running in the mornings now that the air doesn't chew your lungs up. I run past the police station sometimes and think about how last year every time I saw it I felt like I was falling downstairs, and this year it's just a building with an American flag that needs to be washed. Last night it rained for the first time in weeks and my backyard turned into a brown slide for a few hours like it promised the kids it would. They went out in rain boots and came back in barefoot, happy and feral, mud up to their knees. I took their boots and lined them up at the back door like little soldiers who had seen some things. When I tucked them in, my daughter whispered that she had a dream where Daddy was on a boat that didn't go anywhere, and he was waving, and we were waving back, from the shore, and everyone's arms got tired and then the boat just floated behind a cloud. She asked if that means he's okay. I told her I think it means he's not here. She turned her face into her pillow and nodded like that counted. I don't check the cameras as much as I used to. The front door is still boring. The folder is still thick and lives under the printer, and the kids' art is taped to the fridge in a chaotic grid that makes the kitchen look like a gallery for people who like stick figures and sons. I thought quiet would feel like a gift and then I learned it can be, and then I learned it can split. Right now, it's holding. Right now, that's enough. I'm not waiting for the tilt. I'm making dinner and answering emails and telling my son that toothbrushes are not swords, no matter how good they feel in your hand. The AC hums. The neighbor's dog barks at a squirrel like there's a war on. Somewhere, maybe, somebody is filing something with a red thumbprint on it. Here, the only red is popsicle. We are okay. There's no end, but there's this. And this, right now, is ours.